Hello, welcome to another decktech. Today we have hogaak. This is a list that is concentrating on both convoke and delve. So we're trying to mill ourselves and create tokens to cast hogaak as often and consistent as possible. Um, Today in this video I chose the visual spoiler option instead of the text option like in the last video. Of course, I realized that it's much easier to go over the cards this way than the other one. First up, when you're wondering why there are like special versions chosen, I did this edit thing where it automatically chose the most cheap version of every card. Because I'm trying to be budget. Obviously this deck isn't a budget deck. It's just in my playgroup there's a certain power level, and with other commanders and other strategies I can go with a budget deck. And by budget I mean 100 euros, um, maybe 5 plus, or like 105, or sometimes it's just 90, 85. It depends, right? Um, so yeah, I would just start right away. Oh, maybe I can say that this deck was for a friend, not for myself. Me personally, I don't think hogaak is a very exciting commander, but during the process of the stack list, um, I came across some challenges, and I don't know, it kind of grew to my heart, this list. By the way, I'm gonna say it again in this video. If I'm saying anything odd, that's because I'm German and my English really isn't perfect, but I'm trying. I hope the sound in this video is a lot better than in the first video, even though in the tests that I made in between those videos, I um, I could hear some like that my voice is kind of chopped. I don't know if that's the right word. Feels weird. Okay, but now let's start. So the commander is Hogaak, Arisen Necropolis. That's the card is from Modern Horizon 1, and it's a 7 mana 8/8 legendary creature avatar. It has trample. You don't uh, see it uh, on the first look because it's right on the bottom of the card, not like it normally is on the top of the text box. But the commander says you can't spend mana to cast that spell. The spell. That means we have to have creatures on the battlefield that can pay the color mana with Convoke, and um, the Delve can pay the colorless cost. I mean, obviously Convoke can also pay the colorless cost, but we're trying to pay the colorless cost with Delve because Delve can pay colored mana. And Hogaak says that you can cast him from your graveyard, which is our goal. So we have one Planeswalker in this list, and that's Grist, the Hunger Tide. It's a card from Modern Horizon 2. It's a 3 mana Planeswalker that enters with 3 loyalty counters, and its static ability is as long as Grist the Hunger's Tide isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. In this deck, it's kind of relevant. So it's not relevant for our commander, but it is relevant for effects like Golgari Grave Troll, because it says Golgari Grave Troll enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each creature card in our graveyard, and Grist is a creature card in our graveyard. The +1 is create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, mill a card, and if the card we mill was an insect, we put a loyalty counter on her and repeat the process. The second thing where we put a loyalty counter and repeat the process when we mill an insect is won't happen often. We play 2 insects in this list, so yeah, mostly we're just gonna create this 1 token and mill 1 card. The -2 is you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. And the -5 is each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. As you can see, we are playing 35 creatures, and well, with our commander 36. That's quite a lot, so the -5 can hurt pretty bad if we get there. Yeah, the first creature we play is Ashaya, Soul of the Wilds. The reason we play it is it helps us dodge some removal, and it's a big fat creature because the hidden commander of this deck basically is Jarad, Golgari Lich Lord, which I'll talk about later. So then we have Birds of Paradise. Everyone knows what it does. We have Circle of the Land Druid. It's a 2 mana 1/1 body, 1 generic, 1 green creature, Gnome Druid. Those creature types really don't matter in this deck. When it enters the battlefield, we mill 4 cards, and when it dies, we can return a land card from our graveyard to our hand. The mill 4 is just really helpful if we want to delve with our commander. Then we have Deathrite Shaman, pretty sure everyone knows what that does. We have Disciple of Bolas. 4 mana, 3 generic, 1 black creature, human wizard, 2/1. And when Disciple of Bolas enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. This thing where we draw cards equal to a creature's power, doesn't matter if we sacrificed it or if we have it in our graveyard or on the battlefield. This is our main card advantage and our main use of our commander. Our commander basically is just there to have a 8/8 body on the battlefield and yeah, do something with it. Then we play a few more mana dogs, Elves of the Deep Shadow and Elvish Mystic, Findhorn Elves and Llanowar Elves, the usual suspects. We are also playing Fiend Artisan. It's a 2 mana 1/1 creature. Fiend Artisan gets +1/+1 for each creature card in our graveyard, so also a creature that can get really big in this deck. And it also has the ability for X and hybrid green-black. Oh, the casting cost is also hybrid green-black, green-black. Yeah, ability X and green-black. Tap, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Then we also have Genesis, the 5 mana 4/4 creature incarnation, and it says at the beginning of our upkeep, if Genesis is in our graveyard, we may pay 2 generic, and 1 green. When we do, we can return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Since we're playing quite a lot self-mill, this is most probably gonna end up in our graveyard, and if we really need to, we can pay the 3 mana in our upkeep to get a creature back. Then we have Golgari Grave Troll. It's a 5 mana skeleton troll creature that enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each creature card in our graveyard. And for 1 mana, we can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to regenerate it. And it has Dredge 6. And for anyone who doesn't know, Dredge is a replacement effect that says as long as that card is in our graveyard and we would draw a card, we can instead put this card into our hand and mill equal to the number that's written next to the dredge, like in this case 6. So whenever we would draw a card, if the Golgari Grave Troll is in the graveyard, we can instead put the Grave Troll into your hand and mill 6. Then we also have Gwenna, Eye of Gaia. It's 3 mana, 2 generic and 1 green with 2/3 Elf Druid Scout, legendary creature, and can tap for 2 mana in any combination of colors, though we can spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creature we control, or creature cards. So also could be an ability of a creature that's in exile or graveyard or in our hand or library. I am not sure if that exists actually. But a very nice part of that creature is that whenever we cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, we put a +1/+1 counter on it and untap it. So even though we can't use the mana to cast our commander, we can tap her, produce 2 mana, cast our commander, and untap her to maybe add another 2 mana to cast something else or activate Gerard's ability. Then we are playing the Haywire Mite. This is one of the 2 insects in this deck. It costs 1 generic, and it says when it dies, we gain 2 life, and for 1 green, we can sacrifice it to exile target non-creature, artifact, or non-creature enchantment. Then we have Hermit Druid. Hermit Druid is a 2 mana 1/1 Druid. I think it's human, maybe elf. Let's check. Hermit Druid. We should find it that way. Okay, never mind. We go here, few details. It's human druid. And Hermit Druid says for 1 green and tap, we reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a land card, a basic land card. It's important. Basic land card. Put that card into your hand and put all other revealed cards into your graveyard. This deck is absolutely insane in self-mill decks. You'll often see it in Gitrog monster lists or deck lists that have Jared Golgari Lichlord as their face commander. And yeah, just pretty insane. Then we also are playing Isoni, Thousand-Eyed for 6 mana. 2 generic, black, green, legendary creature, elf shaman, 2/3, and has the ability Undergrowth. Whenever we read Undergrowth, it's about how many creature cards we have in our graveyard. And this card says we get a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in our graveyard. And for 1 green and 1 black, we can sacrifice another creature. Then we gain 1 life and draw a card. So whenever we have this effect that we create a token for each creature card in our graveyard, that could mean that we can cast our commander like 2 times just with the convoke, which is pretty insane. Then we are playing Jared Golgari Lichlord for 4 mana, black black, green green. We get a legendary creature, Zombie Elf, with 2/2, and he also says he gets +1/+1 for each creature card in our graveyard. And for 3 mana, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power, which definitely is the win con of this deck. Or yeah, it's the main win con of this deck. Our goal is to have 1, maybe 2 very big creatures to just one-shot our opponents. And then he also has the ability for sacrifice a swamp and a forest, return Jared from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah, pretty nuts. Then we are playing Kasich Cage Breakers. For 5 mana, 4 generic and 1 green, we get a creature, human rogue, with power and toughness 3/4. And when Kasich Cage Breakers attack, we put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking for each creature card in our graveyard. That means we get double the amount of creature cards in our graveyard in power attacking onto the battlefield, which means whenever it attacks, and we can distribute the attackers after attacker declares, so we wouldn't even have to pay for propaganda or ghostly prison effects. This card can also just be game over for, like, when we have 15, 20 creature cards in our graveyard and attack with it, we can just wipe out 2 opponents maybe. So yeah, Land of Elves, Lord of Extinction. That's one of those bodies we desperately want to sacrifice in our Jarad, because Lord of Extinction says for 5 mana we get a creature elemental with power and toughness equal to all cards in all graveyards. So this being a 50/50 creature is so easy. Then we're also playing Night Thrower? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Night Thrower is a 3 mana, 1 generic black enchantment creature horror with Bestow, and the Bestow cost is 2 mana and black. Bestow means you can basically cast this as an aura enchant creature card. And it says Night Hauler or enchanted creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So we could play this as just a creature, for example, when we don't have any other creature on the battlefield. But when we have our commander on the battlefield, we could also just enchant our commander with it to make the commander huge. And since our commander already has trample, we might also be able to kill someone with commander damage. Then we have old Stick Fingers. The casting cost is X and black-green. Then we get a legendary creature Horror with when you cast a spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And old Stick Fingers power and toughness is equal to the number of creature cards in our graveyard. So another creature that might be pretty big and helps us putting more creatures into our graveyard. Then we are also playing Ramunap Excavator. It's a 3 mana, 2 generic, 1 green, 2/3 creature Naga Cleric that allows us to play lands from our graveyard. Then we play Sakura Tribe Elder, Thief. Hopefully everyone knows it. I'm not going to read it. Then we have Satyr Wayfinder. It's a 2 mana, 1/1 Satyr that says when it enters the battlefield, we reveal the top 4 cards of our library, and then we may put a land card from among them into your hand and the rest into our graveyard. Then we are playing Skewed Swarm. Skewed Swarm I think I haven't played this deck in paper, but I think it's an absolute beast in this deck. So Skewed Swarm is a 3 mana 1/1 insect. It's the second insect in this deck. And it has landfall. Landfall means whenever a land enters the battlefield, this ability triggers. So yeah, I mean, it says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Skewed Swarm instead. So when we play this without having 6 lands, and we play a land, we just get a 1/1 insect token, right? But when we play this while we have already 6 or more lands, and we then play a land with a creature token of it. So then after the first land drop, we would have 2. And after the second, we'll have 4 and 8 and 16 and so on and so on. Which means there might be a point where we have Skewed Swarm and a Shire out and a Sack Outlet. Although we don't play a lot of them, we have Viscera Seer, which basically is the only, no, not only, my mistake. We are playing Phyrexian Altar and Altar of Dementia, so it's not the only free stack outlet. So when we have one of those 3 stack outlets, the Skewed Swarm and Ashaya, that basically means we can cast our commander as often as we want, because Ashaya is going to turn our commander into a forest creature, forest land creature. So whenever we cast him and he enters the battlefield, he is going to trigger the landfall ability. And as long as we are creating 7 or more Skewed Swarm copies with each land drop, those Skewed Swarm copies can instantly pay for the next Convoke cost that we pay. So we can just sacrifice our commander, tap 7 Skewed Swarms, cast him, have another landfall trigger, create new 7 and more Skewed Swarms, sacrifice it, and again and again. So that's a combo right there. I'm pretty sure it's the single, like the only combo this deck is playing, but I might be mistaken. So then we have Skull Prophet. It's a 2 mana, 1 black, 1 green, 3/1 creature, human druid, and it can either tap for black or green, or tap to put 2 cards from our library into our graveyard, like the top 2 cards, obviously. Then we are playing Soldavi Adnate. It's a 2 mana, 1/2 human cleric, I think. It's not that important, but yeah, human cleric. And it says for tap, sacrifice a black or artifact creature to add an amount of black mana to our mana pool equal to that creature's casting cost. That's just a way where we can turn our commander into just 7 black mana and then use that mana to cast things we want to cast and get our commander with Delve and Convoke back. Then we are playing Stitch's Supplier for 1 mana, 1/1 creature zombie. When it enters the battlefield or dies, we put the top 3 cards of our library into our graveyard. Then we are playing Sir Conrad. Sir Conrad is a 5 mana, 5/4 legendary creature, human knight. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves our graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. And for 2 mana, we can each player mills 1 card. So Sir Conrad is really good in this deck because we are playing self-mill, so we are already putting creature cards from our library into our graveyard, which he sees and then deals damage to our opponents. And we are also sacrificing creatures, not only our commander, but also tokens. And we are also we have creatures leaving our graveyard. Not only our commander that we will try to cast as often as possible from our graveyard, but also the creature cards that we are exiling with Delve to cast our commander. And with the Delve, we prefer to exile non-creature cards into the Delve of our commander, but sometimes we won't have a choice, right? Yeah. And the second ability, where each player mills one card, I think this is one of the few decks where you actually are activating this ability here and there. Then we are playing Timeless Witness. In this deck, we are just playing Timeless Witness over Eternal Witness because we can recur it from our graveyard. Since we mill ourselves, and an Eternal Witness that we are milling is pretty bad compared to the Timeless Witness. Then we are playing Tireless Provisioner. It's just a good card, to be honest. I'm personally not a fan of playing cards that are just good. I I want to have pretty much every single card have synergies with the deck, but yeah, I guess it has some synergy, for example, with Ashaya. But yeah, it's mostly there because it's good. Then we have Tormod. Tormod is just generating us a lot of tokens. Sadly, they do enter the battlefield tapped, so they can't convoke right away. But yeah, gonna be fine. Think he is gonna create quite a lot of zombie tokens for us in the right circumstance. Then we are playing Undead Butler. Undead Butler is a 2-mana 1/2 zombie creature, and when he enters the battlefield, we mill 3 cards. And when he dies, we may exile him, and if we do, we can return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Then we are playing Viscera Seer. Viscera Seer is a 1-mana 1/1 vampire wizard, and he's sack outlet, and whenever we sacrifice a creature, we scry 1. Then we're also playing World Shaper. World Shaper is 4-mana 3/3 creature, Merfolk Shaman, I don't know. And whenever he attacks, we mill 3 cards, and when he dies, we return all land cards from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, in the right moment, this die trigger can be pretty much game winning. Then we have Agadeem's Awakening. Agadeem's Awakening is just really great because it's a land on the one side and a possible kind of mass reanimate spell on the front side. And I think I've cast the front side probably 100 times. And I'm not playing it in a lot of decks. It's just almost always when I have it, I'm casting the front side instead of playing it as a land. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this card. Then we're also playing Bala Get Recovery, also a card that's a land on the back side, and basically a regrowth for 3 mana on the front side. Pretty great. Then we are playing Breach the Multiverse. In this deck, we don't care too much about we mill our opponents for 10. We're playing it because it mills ourselves for 10, and it can give us up to 4 creature cards to convoke our commander, or just maybe those creatures are just so good that they win us the game on their own. Who knows? Then we are also playing Buried Alive. I don't think I have mentioned it by now, but I personally dislike playing a lot of tutors or almost tutors in general. Sorry, just like in the first video, my headset is turning off sometimes. I have to look for that. So yeah, I dislike tutors. I'm not playing them a lot, just a bit. Again, this is a deck list that I made for a friend, and he asked me to include Burial Life, so I did. And obviously, it's a very good card. But when I play a tutor in a deck of mine, it mostly is there to not just be a tutor. It always should also have some synergies. Um, then we are playing Dread Reborn. Dread Reborn is a reanimate spell for either 4 mana to generic on black black, or we can cast it with its flashback cost from our graveyard by sacrificing 3 creatures instead of paying the mana cost, and then we can just return any creature card in our graveyard to the battlefield. Then we are also playing Life from the Loam. Everyone who never played this card before, it's insane in any graveyard deck. Oh, wait. I think in the future I'm going to turn off my Discord notification while recording. So yeah, Life from the Loam is a 2 mana sorcery. Wait, I'm going to do it right now. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, so I just had to switch off or just turn off the Discord stuff. So yeah, we were live from the loan. Genau. And I just said a German word. So whoever didn't play this at all by now, it's pretty insane. It's a 2 mana sorcery that says return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand, and it has dredge 3. I already described or explained dredge, so I'm not going to go over that. But one of the important things with that card is you don't actually need 3 land cards in your graveyard. You can just cast it without any targets to just have the dredge online, and it really fuels itself, because when you, for example, turn 2, just cast it without any target. Maybe you already have a target because you played a fetch land or Terramorphic Expanse or like budget fetches. But even without targets, you can just play it, and your next draw, you're just gonna say, okay, I put it back into my hand and mill 3, and that way, I pretty much guarantee you're never gonna miss a land drop again, and you can just fill your graveyard. Just that card alone can do a lot of work. Yeah, big fan. Then next card is Life's Legacy. It's a 2 mana sorcery, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, we sacrifice a creature, and then we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. We most of the time are going to sacrifice our commander because we can bring it back so easily. So we're just going to draw 8 cards for 2 mana, which is pretty insane. I mean, yeah, we have to get our commander out beforehand, but that shouldn't be too hard. And for those who don't know, when we have this card in our graveyard and a spell says we draw 8 cards, we cannot do dredge 3 8 times. We do it once. So if we have this in our graveyard, draw 8, and we choose to do that, we put this into our hand, mill 3, and draw 7 cards. Then we're also playing Living Death. Since we're a graveyard deck, we play many creatures, we mill ourselves. Living Death might here and then just be the right card to turn the tables. So yeah, and I'm personally just a big fan of it, even though I'm generally not really a graveyard player. I was, and yeah, still in love with that specific card. Then we are playing Rishka's Expertise. It's a 6 mana sorcery that says draw cards equal to the highest greatest power among creatures you control, and then we can cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from our hand without paying its mana cost. Pretty insane. I have like playtests, like just with myself, like here on Mox Shield, where I, for example, draw 8 cards, draw into a Conduit, and just cast a Conduit without paying its mana cost. Yeah, pretty nuts. Also possible with Rad or a lot of extinctions. So or Ashaya. So they're really your key cards are beneath or are 5 or beneath um, the 5 CMC or beneath. So that's pretty sweet. Also here, Living Death or Spider Spawning, which is not actually too crazy, but still a good card. Or Return of the White Speaker. Yeah. So continuing. Spider Spawning is a 5 mana sorcery that creates a 1/2 green spider creature token for each with reach for each creature card in our graveyard. This is basically there to make it possible that we can cast our commander with Convoke just another or maybe another 2 times from our graveyard just by casting this card, which sounds pretty good to me. Then to the instance, we have removal spell, Beast Within, Lethal Scheme, or Overwhelming Remorse. I'm a big fan of Overwhelming Remorse, and I think this is just the perfect deck for it. My other deck tag that I have already uploaded is Oscar, and I have Overwhelming Remorse in that list too, but I'm 100% sure that it's gonna perform better in this list, and I might even end up cutting it from the Oscar deck. But here I'm 100% sure it's gonna be a good card. Beast Within, everybody knows Beast Within. Then we have Lethal Scheme. It has Convoke, and it helps us putting cards into our graveyard since we can connive up to 4 times. And connive means we draw a card and then discard a card. So yeah, also a pretty good fit in this deck. Then we have Carrion. It's a 3 mana instant. I really like that it's an instant. And it says sacrifice a creature in addition as an additional cost to cast a spell. We can see that since after the sacrifice a creature, there's I don't know how to call it in English. Like it's not just full stop. It's like yeah, you know what I mean. And when we go at few details, the new text is also as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. And then we create 1/0 black creature tokens, like a number of 1/0 black creature tokens equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Pretty sure, well, yeah. Insect creature tokens. Okay, wasn't sure about that. Does it say it? Maggot tokens. Okay. Yeah. So when we have our commander, we can sacrifice it into Carrion, which basically means we can just recast it because we create 8/0/0/1/01 black insect tokens. So we can just tap 7 of them to cast our commander again. Then we are playing Malachi Rebirth, another card that's a land on the backside, and on the front side it's an instant where we can choose a creature, lose to life, and until end of turn the chosen creature gets the additional text of when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under your control. Then we're also playing Momentous Fall. It's a 4 mana instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, we sacrifice a creature, and then we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and we gain life equal to its toughness. Then we have Return of the Wild Speaker. It's a 5 mana instant where we can choose one. Either we draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures we control, or all our non-human creatures get +3/+3 until end of turn. And we are making or we can make a lot of tokens which never are humans. They are either insects or spiders, as far as I can tell. So creating a bunch of tokens and then giving all of them +3/+3 and attack seems also quite good. Then we are playing Sacrifice. It's a 1 mana instant that says sacrifice a creature, then add a number of black mana to your mana pool equal to the sacrificed creature's casting cost. And I'm just gonna check something. Yeah, it also is an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. So with this, we're just able to turn our commander in big mana and use it. Then we are playing Songs of the Damned. It's a 1 mana instant, and it says add 1 black mana to your mana pool for each creature card in your graveyard, which is also gonna be easily like 7, 8, easy. I think. I would say it's easy. Then we have Stinging Study, 5 mana instant. You draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the mana value of a commander you own, or on the battlefield on the battlefield or on the command zone. Yeah. So it's basically just 5 mana, draw 7, lose 7 in this deck. Then we have Wasteful Harvest. It's a 3 mana instant. Mill 5 cards. Then you may put a permanent card from among the milled cards this way into your hand. I think it's the best option. If not, just leave it in the comments. I don't know every card that's comparable to this, but the fact that it's an instant for 3 and it mills 5 seems pretty good. And it can return permanent card. It doesn't say land and or creature. Land or creature. It can also be a planeswalker, artifact, or enchantment. Even though we don't have a planeswalker in the graveyard. So the mill spells that say you may return a creature card can return Grist, the Hunger Tide, in this deck. Actually, in every deck. Yeah. Then we are playing Altar of Dementia, 2 mana, sacrifice outlet, and it says sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into their graveyard. This is a win con. This is easily a win con. We can mill our opponents to death very easy, I think. Or I would say. Then we are playing, yeah, again, quick take. In the beginning, I would target myself to fuel my graveyard, and then target the opponents to most likely mill them out. Then we are playing Conduit of Worlds. It's also just another copy of Remnant Excavator. Basically, it allows us to play lands from our graveyard, but also it has the tap ability where we can choose a non-land permanent card in our graveyard. And if we do that, it says if you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can cast an additional spell this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So we should always think good about if it's worth it to activate it. But yeah. Then we're playing Lightning Greaves, just haste for 0 mana and protection. It's always good. Then we're playing Mesmeric Orb. Mesmeric Orb is pretty insane card. It says whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. I've been at a table where this card single-handedly won the game. No opponent ever drew an answer to this, and also wasn't able to kill the owner of it. It just, yeah, I don't know. And even if this card would say that just eye milling, I would still play it. Then we are playing Phyrexian Altar. Usually this is a card, or what? No, yeah, this is a card that I personally don't play. There are a lot of cards that I personally don't play because I really want casual decks. But again, this is a deck for a friend, so he has the card, and said he wanna build it in this deck. Then we are also playing Soldering. And by now, we are through all of our artifacts and our sorceries. By now, you pretty sure realize that we are not playing any amount of dimensional mana rocks or ramp sorceries. And that's my fault, not my friend's fault. Because I'm someone when I play a deck that's, for example, a creature deck like this, and it's possible, if it's possible, then I'm trying to put everything that I want that my deck is doing. I'm trying to find it on a creature. So we are basically only playing ramp on creatures. And I know it has its disadvantages because there are board wipes happening, and then we're there basically without any additional lands or something. But still, this is just my take on that deck. He will play a different list. This deck is just for inspiration for him because he told me he's gonna play Vampiric Tutor and stuff. Because he wants to assure that he is getting his Jared when he needs to. And yeah. But this is my list of that deck, and that deck is just playing creature ramp and sword ring. If I am gonna end up cutting something, I might include the arcane signet just because it's good. And it's like, yeah, decks nowadays really need ramp to keep up. If it, yeah. Then our enchantments, it's crawling sensation. 3 mana, 2 generic, 1 green. At the beginning of our upkeep, we mill 2 cards, and then whenever one or more land cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. There also is a card that's pretty similar, but instead of creating a token whenever a land is put into our graveyard, it says we create a token when a creature card is put into our graveyard. The problem with that card is it only triggers once during our turn and never during an opponent's turn, while this also triggers during an opponent's turn, which is like a lot better in my opinion. Then we have Criminal Past. It's a 3 mana legendary enchantment background for 2 generic and 1 black. Our commanders have menace and get +1/+1 for each +1/+0 for each creature card in our graveyard. So this creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of creature cards in our graveyard. That's what the enchantment says. Then we're also playing Greater Good. Oh, by the way, Criminal Past is just like here Night Hauler. Oh yeah, it's Night Hauler. In the beginning, I had Thorler or anything like something like that. It's Night Hauler. Those 2 cards can turn our commander in basically a second copy of Lord of Extinction, or thing like that, which is great. Also, the combination of Menace and Trample makes it really awkward to block, especially because our commander is so big. We're also playing Greater Good. It's a 4 mana enchantment, sacrifice outlet. Oh, another free sacrifice outlet. In the beginning, I just counted Phyrexian Altar, Altar of Dementia, and the Viscera here. There we have another one. Greater Good. It says sacrifice a creature, then draw cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power, and then discard 3 cards. This card usually means game over, I would say. Like, if we have nothing on the board and playing it, then obviously not. But if we already have a graveyard and our commander, a bit of setup, and we draw this and play it, it should be game over. I Yeah, and it's not an exception that it means game over in this deck. It often means game over in the right decks. It also once, um, which I'm also gonna present to you, had a um, Gruul deck list where it always was game over when I played Greater Good. Even at instant speed, I could like even when there was like a removal spell for Greater Good on the stack, and I could still win. Then there's Journey to Eternity. It's a 3 mana enchantment, legendary enchantment, Aura, for one generic, one black and one green. We enchant a creature, and when the enchanted creature dies, we return it to the battlefield and transform the Journey to Eternity. And on the backside, it's Atzal, Cave of Eternity. It's basically a land that either taps for any color, like 1 mana of any color, or for 5 mana we can return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield, which is pretty decent, since sometimes it will happen that we mill a card that we really want on our battlefield. Um, and then the land base. As you can see, it's quite expensive land base. I'm pretty sure. Wait, hold on a second. Um, on my phone, I'm using Mana Box, and I transfer the deck list and work on the deck list on my phone. Um, Sometimes I work on the deck list, and I think I changed the deck. Just I changed just one card when I remember correctly. Um, so yeah, looks like it. Wait a moment, I want to check which one. So here I'm playing this. One, two, two. Yeah, right. I removed the Phyrexian Tower. Remove, and I added a normal forest. Add one. My friend doesn't have Phyrexian Tower and doesn't want to spend money on it. And also, let me check. It did have another reason, I think. Hmm. Actually, I can't tell right now, but I think I thought something while doing it. I didn't just do it because he told me it doesn't have it. Because yeah. Okay. So the land base is quite expensive. Um, as I show more of my deck lists, you'll see that they're usually not as expensive as that one. But in this deck list, maybe you remember, we are playing the Hermit Druid that says we reveal cards until we reveal a basic land card. And there are deck lists out there that only run 2 basic lands because of Hermit Druid. So they basically just mill half of the deck with their first activation. And that's not quite what I wanted. So I'm playing 9 basic lands right now. I may be cutting 2 or 3 after some feedback, but this is what I went for till now. And then so that's why we're running. So um, how's it called? That's why we are not running a lot of basic lands. Just putting it that way. And then we are also playing Field of the Dead because it's creating black zombie tokens that we can tap to cast our commander. Mm, then we are playing the Cycle Lands. I personally really like the Cycle Lands in 1 or 2 colored decks. I'm playing them basically in every 1 or 2 colored decks. And in this deck, they might also sometimes trigger Crawling Sensation in an opponent's turn, during an opponent's turn. And then we're also playing here Takenuma. It mills his cards. Can return a creature card or planeswalker card, which we don't have in our graveyard. Oh no, Grist. I think Grist is a creature and planeswalker in our graveyard. Right? In addition, yeah. So it mills us cards, which is very good. And yeah, and I think Takenuma is usually a card that I'm not that often channeling, like not as often as Buseiju, um, or Aiganjo, or the blue one, Otawara. But I think in this deck, I don't know. No, we are not playing too many legendary creatures. Like a few here, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8. So it's not too many, but maybe we're gonna channel it. And then we are also playing Cabal Kofu's Urwak combo. Um, obviously Bejugaborg. We are playing Crypt of Agadim. Since we might have like 5, 6 creature cards in our graveyard, and if we don't, it's not as awkward as Cabal Kofu's because it can tap for one single black mana anyway. And we're also playing Mossword Bridge because we easily get 10 power on our board. Yeah, we are playing one fetch land and Demolition Field, and also the cycle and channel lands. They're also good in combination with Light from the Loam. Imagine you're channeling Buseiju every turn cycle and cycling Barrenmoor and Tranquil Thicket and just getting it back again and again with Life from the Loam. Pretty awesome. Um, yeah. And then we're also playing Reliquary Tower. I'm not sure about this card in this deck. We have quite a few of those effects where we just draw a bunch of cards because we have big creatures. And we might draw above 7 hand cards, which would mean we have to discard in our end step. And it's not like I dislike it or anything. Especially in this deck, it can fuel our graveyard, which is generally an advantage. But I still want to try this out. And if I realize that I really don't need it, and I would be better off with those cards in my graveyard, then I'm gonna just remove it from the deck list. And yeah, that's it, guys. We're pretty much done, I would say. Yeah. Um, sure. I think when the thing that I would like to improve on this deck is the self mill, because I did some playtest here, and I feel like the self mill could be more, but on the other hand, I kind of dislike all the self mill spells that are recommended on EDH Rec that I don't already have in this deck list. Because as I told you, I prefer to have my self mill cards on as creatures, my self mill effects on creatures, and yeah, they're just not too many good options. There's like another one card from I think Brothers War that says mill 3, and then it's a creature card for 2 mana, mill 3, and put a land card into your hand. And if you don't put that land card into your hand, it gets a +1/+1 counter, I think. Maybe I'm gonna put this into the deck list. I'm not sure yet though. What I like about the deck is the mana curve. The way I just pronounced it was rather German, because we have quite a few 1-drops and a bunch of 2-drops. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We also playing, as you could have seen some efficient rituals here. Um, I I'm not a huge fan of rituals because most of the time it's just wasted hand card. But in this deck, I think they're quite fine because it shouldn't be too hard to get a lot of card advantage. And yeah, that that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you soon. I don't know how I do this. I'm gonna think of something I'm gonna say in the end and in the beginning. Something quirky. We will see.